Yes, welcome to the Vanguard Show on Black Power Media Reloaded. Today, I have a very special guest who I have the utmost respect for, and I know he's a very busy man, going all over the globe and going to different countries, and just promoting his tremendous book, "Die Standing: From Black Panther Revolutionary to Global Diversity Consultant." It's definitely an honor to have you, brother. Again, I don't know if we got a chance to meet at some of the reunions, but again, Elmer Dixon, I really appreciate you coming today.
Right on, my pleasure. I'm sure we've met. Did you work out of central headquarters at some point?
No, no, actually, I work with Kwaku Duran and Sharif Abdul along with Charles Boko Freeman in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm 60 years old, so I'm a little younger.
Oh, okay. So you're a little younger. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
younger
I got
son.
you. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Mostly because, well, I'm 74, and we were the first chapter outside of the state of California, and the second chapter overall. LA chapter with Bunchy and John were the first chapter. We were the second chapter and the first outside of California, and that was in 1968, and I was just 17 years old. So if you're 60 years old when I was 17, you were 7 years old.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I don't know what you're doing, but you must sleep in a time chamber because you definitely look great, along with your brother Aaron, who I've gotten a chance to speak with as well. I don't know what you brothers do.
Well,
Yeah.
while we eat natural foods and stuff, that was the influence of the Bay Area, Berkeley and that whole thing on the party. But I have to give credit to God first and my mother,
Mm,
who is 99 years old, and
mm.
she looks better than some of my classmates
Oh, okay. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't
at
doubt it.
at, at, at 99.
Wow, it's such a blessing, and make sure you definitely give her my kind regards.
Right on.
Yeah, you've been all over the world. Talk about some of your travels and how your book has been received globally. Because again, I follow you on social media, and I see
Yeah,
you in this country, that country, recently in
yeah,
Chicago. How has the
yeah.
response to it been?
Well, and let me first start off by expressing the response to the Black Panther Party,
Yes, sir.
because I've been guest lecturing at a university in Finland now for the last 13 years, every year, and my guest lecturing there has based on my work as a diversity consultant and working with multicultural concepts. But since the very beginning, before I could get any word out about multicultural or diversity, the students always wanted to hear about the Black Panther Party first.
Mm,
And the head of the department, the business department that brought me there, it's called the IB Department, International Business Department. He would then take me out to high schools. I remember a high school that I went in Finland probably about 8 years ago, and the vice principal was introducing me, and the auditorium was full of kids at this high school, a few of them black, and mostly white. And the principal, when he started to introduce me, he said, "I once read a book called Soul on Ice,"
mm. Elvis
Eldridge
Cleaver.
Cleaver's book,
Yes.
and 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 that's how he introduced me to this 500 students. And I've had students in these high schools approach me and ask, "How do we start a Black Panther Party in Finland?" And I always tell them, you need to start your own a new organization with the concepts of the party. But
Right.
I was in France I did a keynote speech in France in 2010, and two women approached me afterwards from the Netherlands and asked me if I would come to the Netherlands to speak to school kids there, because she said school kids in the Netherlands learn about the Black Panther Party in school. And I was kind of taken aback by that, because that wasn't happening in the U.S. But
Mm.
here, this was 2010, and it was happening in the Netherlands.
Wow.
And so they brought me to the Netherlands, and I was speaking at several venues on the Black Panther Party, universities, some community organizations. And two of the community organizations were Black community organizations. I don't know if you know the history of the Black people in the Netherlands. They come from a country on the east coast of South America. And the country's name, I don't know why it evades me at this point. That's my 74-year-old brain. But they had immigrated. They had fought a struggle for their right to immigrate since they were a Dutch colony. And so they immigrated in the 70s. And so when I get to one of these community centers, I'm walking towards where my hosts are taking me towards along the building, and all on the windows were copies of the Black Panther paper.
Oh, wow.
And this is in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam.
Okay. Yeah, I've been to Amsterdam. I've been there. Yes.
So so internationally, the Black Panther Party has always been celebrated, has always been acknowledged. In fact, the year before my book came out, I was invited to speak at Trinity University or Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. And that was my second trip in Ireland. And they gave me this award called the some honorary award that they gave to Desmond Tutu, Whoopi Goldberg. I mean,
wow.
And there was this big ceremony, and so, you know, comrades, we don't do well accepting individual awards. So when I accepted it on behalf of all of my comrades, my fallen comrades, and also the comrades that are still in prison. So I accepted it on their behalf, and I got this medallion, this gold medallion, that will go in our interpretive museum that we're building here in Seattle, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But so the long answer to your question is that the Black Panther Party has always been recognized and celebrated internationally. When my book came out, I just kind of followed the path of those places that I'd been. I spoke in, 8, maybe 10 different universities last year in Ireland. They moved me around Ireland, around Dublin, and took me up to Belfast, where the IRA, is or was, and I spoke at Belfast University of Belfast, to a packed crowd, and so the book has been widely accepted. But like I said, I'd been in many of these places. I sold it. I did sold it in Finland. I'd done talks on the Black Panther Party in Finland before. I've been interviewed by newspapers there on several different occasions. Of course, in Paris, I'm in Paris every year for the last 12 years, 12, 13 years, whatever it's been, and hang out with friends there. And I spoke to a Black women's group for the second time, but that time last year I had my book, and so they were able to buy the book and ask questions. And it's just and we've been all up in Canada, sold a lot of books in Canada, so the book has been well received. There's a woman in Canada who is floating it to some movie producers. And so we'll see what happens. But it's gotten a lot of recognition. It's been a bestseller. It's been on bestseller lists. It was #1 for Amazon's hot new releases for history on the Pacific Northwest last year, and a couple of other bestseller lists. So it's doing quite well. So I continue to work with folks. I was supposed to be in Nigeria right now.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
And my wife is terminally ill and has been struggling. So I pulled that trip back and told them maybe I'll come to that event next year, because I will be in Africa next year, and promoting the book. And I've got a friend that is looking to bring me to New Zealand and Australia, where you remember that or recall that, because they were at the Polynesian Panthers were at the 50th anniversary.
Yes.
In Oakland, and so I'm looking to get hosted down there and in New Zealand and Sydney, Australia, where there was a chapter as well next year. So
okay.
we're still just getting started. It's been out a little over a year. We're still just getting started.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to send healing, prayers to your wife and everything. And I definitely appreciate you sharing that as well. Yes, sir. Now,
Well,
yes, sir. Did you you had a talk in Chicago, and aren't your people originally have a connection to
we're,
Chicago?
we're from Chicago. Aaron and I and my
Yeah.
sister Joanne were born
Yeah.
in Chicago.
Wow.
We were born on the South Side
Okay.
in we lived in the same neighborhood that Emmett Till was from,
Wow.
which is where my parents grew up. My mother, her family's from Mississippi,
Mm. Okay.
where Emmett was murdered, but she grew up in Chicago. My dad's family, and my dad was born in Henderson, Kentucky, and
Mm.
then migrated to the north during the Great Migration, and grew up in also the same neighborhood that Emmett was murdered, came from. So we have strong ties in Chicago. Um, I've been, we used to go back for summers uh, when we were kids. We moved to Seattle in 1957.
Oh, wow.
That seems like
Wow.
such a long time
Yeah.
ago. I was I was 7 years old,
Oh,
but
okay.
we would go back to Chicago on the summers and hang out with cousins and our grandparents. And
Oh, wow. Okay.
but it wasn't until as an adult
Mm.
that I actually experienced the real Chicago, as an adult, when my business, we've been in business 37 years, and I've had major clients in Chicago. United Airlines, we trained 19,000 flight attendants around the globe.
Wow.
Um, in Hong Kong, we were in China, we were all over the globe for that contract, but they're based in Chicago. So and then US Gypsum, which is also based in Chicago, they were a
Okay.
client for 12 years. And so I got to spend the last probably 8 to 10 years of my father's mother, my grandmother on my father's side, the
Mhm.
last 10 years of her life. She died at 102 and went to sleep.
Oh, wow.
So we've got a lot of connections and roots in Chicago.
Okay. Wow. And I definitely want to bring this fact that my wife was looking at TV. I think it was a few years ago, and she loved this high low kids show. And she
Uh,
ran in the room and said, "Do you know this gentleman here?" And you were sitting down talking to the kids. And again, she loves this show. I think it's called High Low Kids. And to
yeah,
see you
yeah.
on there, what was their reception to you? I saw on the TV, but how was that experience for you?
You know, and that experience really is the tip of the iceberg, because, of course, the party has been more embraced by the broader community in recent years, and those kids were just thrilled to be interacting with me. But I started getting invited to elementary schools here in Seattle in 2018, following our 50th anniversary that we had here. And the reaction to these kids, in fact, they're the group that I'm most excited about when I go to talk to them, because I don't talk to them like I do adults or high school students, which I go into high schools and middle schools, obviously a lot of universities. But when I go to the elementary schools, I have their teachers first educate them about the Black Panther Party. And then when I come to them, they're asking me questions. One school that I was in back in 2018, and this is prior to, of course, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Arbery being murdered in 2020. This was 2018. I was in a white elementary school across from Seattle in Bellevue, Washington. And one of the kids in the classroom, as they started asking questions, he was the very first question. He was about a 7 or 8 year old little white boy. This was a room of second graders,
Okay.
and he had so much like energy about to explode in his body. And he said, "What was it like being on the police alert patrol?"
Okay.
And this kid, but these kids understood,
Yeah.
and as I said before George Floyd,
Mhm.
the importance of the Black Panther Party holding cops accountable.
Mhm.
And I always tell these babies, I tell them, most cops are good cops.
Mhm.
And I said, there's always bad seeds, and we seem to get more bad seeds in our community. And
Right.
so, you have to make sure that you question. And I always tell them to, um, I tell them, don't believe everything your teachers tell you. Right in front of their teachers, I tell them this. And I say, go read a book called, and ask your teacher to get you the book called Lies My Teacher Told Me.
Oh, wow.
Because
Mhm.
their brains are so
Yeah.
receptive and open.
Mhm.
And the response to, you know, a former Black Panther, and realizing, the historical significance, because, um, you know, in fact, one elementary school I was in, I had maybe 400 kids sitting on the floor with the questions coming. One little girl asked me, "Well, how old are you?" And so it's kind of like I'm this ancient figure from the past that's still alive, and was a freedom fighter. And I'm always and imploring them to stand up, for their rights, and stand up for one another, and fight bullying. And I was this one of the elementary schools, and these kids, when I go in,
Mhm.
I go into the black elementary schools, and the black kids, they crowd around, and they said, "He's here," and they start touching me, and they, "Can I touch you?"
Wow.
It's like this figure out of, like, out of history. So
Mhm.
it's not me, it's the persona of
Mhm.
the Black Panther Party. And I know how to work with these kids. And when I finished in this one elementary school, there was it wasn't really a tough question. The fifth grader who asked it was embarrassed, or she thought it was a bad question. And when she got up, she started to cry. And I told her, I said, "Sweetheart, don't cry." Her teacher kind of put her arm around her.
Mhm.
And I said, "Go ahead and ask the question." She asked, "Were Black people the only ones that suffered?" And I told her, "No, Black people were not the only ones that suffered. Oppressed people. Our struggle was about oppressed people. Black, brown, white. The Rainbow Coalition." And I told her it was a good question. So when we finished, the kindergartners, they got up first and bum rushed me. And
Mhm.
they were just all squeezing my arms and hugging me and my legs. And I was like,
Oh.
and then the first graders, and they all came, and I turned around, and there was that fifth grader with her little girlfriend.
Mhm.
And I said, "You can get one too." And they came, and they just, it's just, these kids, it's just, Malik, I can't tell you the energy that I get from them, the response, because once they hear the true story, they hear the truth. See, the kids don't want to be lied to. Their parents are saying, "Well, okay, Santa Claus will come down the chimney," or
Mhm.
that kind of, they don't want to be lied to. They want the truth.
That's right.
And so when they hear the truth, they're just amazed at what we did as Black Panthers. And that's the biggest mission in my life, is the years that I have left, is to make sure that I spend it educating and uplifting young people,
Yes.
um, and people of all ages, but particularly the youth, because, as we always used to say in the party, the youth are the future.
Yes. Absolutely. And I was going to say, when did you first hear about the Black Panther Party, and why did you join? Certainly, there were other organizations, but what made the Black Panther Party your, intent in terms of serving our people?
Well, and Aaron may have told the story that we're living in a time of assassinations. We grew up in a house where our
Mhm.
parents, coming from, my mom from Mississippi, my dad from Kentucky, fought in World War II and got spat on as a soldier marching off to fight to save this country. But none of that colored him. He always taught us, the Martin Luther King's motto, which is, judge a person by the context of their character, not the color of their skin. We grew up in that environment. But we also grew up in the environment where they made sure that we saw what was happening on TV, watching Bloody Sunday while it was happening, watching the aftermath of the 16th Street Baptist Church, all these assassinations, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X. But I wasn't politicized. We marched with King when I was 11 years old. I wasn't politicized. I was just absorbing. And in 67, this cat by the name of Stokely Carmichael came to Seattle. And he was the national spokesperson for SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and had followed on the heels of H. Rap Brown. And so all the black folks, young black people, gathered at Garfield High School we went to, same high school that Jimi Hendrix went to,
Yeah, that's right.
and Quincy Jones, and
Wow.
Jimi Hendrix hired the Seattle Black Panther Party to be security for his last concert. That's
Okay, I
what
didn't
that's
I
where I
didn't know
met him
that.
backstage.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I
Okay.
met him backstage and kicked it with him over a beer and a joint, and he said that he would do a full benefit for the breakfast program when he got back from that last trip to Europe, which he died on. But anyway, so Stokely comes to that high school,
Mm.
and he lays it down.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying the reason why black people don't have freedom is because they don't love themselves. You hate the fact that you're black.
Mm.
You know, he gave all the analogies: devil's food cake is black, angel food cake is white, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And that was the mass awakening
Mm.
of black people in Seattle.
Okay. All right.
Young black people.
Right.
I was 17 at the time.
Mm.
And when they talk about your awoke moment, we called it back then getting political consciousness.
Okay, right.
So then, I joined SNCC, became the co-chair of SNCC. And then we started, me and my buddies, when we went back to my senior year at high school, started the first or second high school black student union on the West Coast of the United States at Garfield.
Okay.
So I was already into doing stuff, as was Aaron, who was had along with another brother by the name of Larry Gossett, had started the BS Black Student Union at the University of Washington. Aaron was already at the UW.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Aaron had gotten a hold of a couple of newspapers, Black Panther newspapers. Well, and and we talked about it and said, we got to check these dudes out, but we didn't know how that was going to happen.
Right.
You have to remember that the party at that point was a local organization.
Right.
Okay. And they had started to put this Black Panther newsletter out, and as Huey said, that power is the ability to define phenomena and make it act in a desired manner, and we're not going to allow others to tell our story. We're going to tell our own story. And so he created the Black Panther newspaper. And so it was following an incident where we had taken over a sister high school's principal's office. In fact, we took over the whole school.
Oh, wow.
Franklin High School. They had called us and said, we're getting misused over here. And so a few of us went from Garfield, Aaron and Larry, and a few others came from the UW. And Larry said, so y'all ready? And they said, yep. So we marched across the street, went up into the school, kicked the principal out, the vice principal out, kicked everybody out, and took over the school. And we stayed there overnight. Wow. The phone rang the next day, and the principal, we answered the phone, and it was saying, Franklin High School, how can I help you? And it was the principal begging us to leave, and said they can have a Black Studies program, they can have a BSU, right. Please leave my office. And so we left. Well, a week later, right. When I was in my geometry class, the phone rang, and they said, Elmer, they want you in the office. Now, I'd already been kicked out of school several times just to get the BSU started in Garfield. Right. And so when the phone rang, and he said, Elmer, they want you in the office. I said, what, again? So closed my geometry book, and as soon as I stepped out of the office, two detectives handcuffed me and took me to juvie. Wow. And unbeknownst to me, Aaron and Larry were being arrested and taken to jail. Wow. And when I got into juvie, there was a big commotion around the TV. I got in, and there on the screen, MLK had been assassinated. Oh. And it was like they had gotten us off the street and known that this is the time to get them before they can organize, stuff in Seattle. So it was our parents, my parents picked me up that night. It was a very solemn time for them. I can only imagine what they thought. The Prince of Peace had just been assassinated, and their two oldest sons are in jail or juvie. Wow. So what's on the horizon? Well, when we were scheduled to attend the West Coast Conference of Black Student Unions at San Francisco State University, and there was a bunch of us, high school and college students, who were crowded into these cars, this car caravan. And when we got to the Bay Area and checked in, to where we were going to be staying, and communes, it was all commune back then.
Yeah, and living together. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so we got to the university, and the keynote speaker was none other than Chairman Bobby Seale.
Wow. Wow. So that really cemented it right there.
Well, here's the piece.
Okay.
So Chairman Bobby gave the most fiery speech that you will ever want to hear that I'd ever heard since or before, because he was pissed off.
Yeah.
And the reason why he was pissed off, he was up on the stage with Captain Crutch and what's that other brother's name? His bodyguard, Warren Wells.
Right.
And he was pissed off because 2 days after MLK was assassinated, the first member to join the Black Panther Party, his friend, Little Bobby Hutton, was murdered in the streets of Oakland by the Oakland police, technically while in police custody.
Wow. Yeah.
And so he was fiery mad. Mm-hmm. And when he finished his speech, you could see, he almost feel the line drawn in the sand.
Wow. Yeah.
Because I remember him saying, "We're gonna fight this revolution until our blood runs in the streets." And you could see the students that were scared to death, which was the majority of them.
Right. Okay.
The few of us that were not, and Aaron and I and a couple others made a beeline to Chairman Bobby, and we said, we wanted to start a chapter of the Black Panther Party.
Wow. Wow.
And so Chairman Bobby said, "Okay, well, you need to come and see and attend Little Bobby's funeral the next day." So he wanted us to see what we were getting into. Right. And I remember crossing the Bay Bridge into West Oakland and seeing hundreds of young Black men and women in leather jackets and berets in military formation. See, what happened in Oakland at that time would happen across the country. And that is an explosion of the Black Panther Party overnight. And so all these young brothers and sisters in leather jackets and berets, I remember at the rally, I recognized the white dude on the stage. It was Marlon Brando, because Marlon Brando was always a staunch supporter of the Black Panther Party and people's rights. And then when we got into the church, the walls were lined with brothers and sisters in leather jackets and berets, and down in front was Little Bobby's coffin, draped in a flag, Panther flag.
Yes. Wow.
So we sat, he made it so that we had seats, because there's so many of the community was coming out, made it sure that we had seats up front. And when it came time to view the remains, Mrs. Hutton, like Mamie Till, wanted the community to see what the police had done to her son. Yeah. And so they had the open casket. When it came for us our turn to file by, I remember, and this is the image that's burned in my brain that will never leave. I remember looking down and looking at Little Bobby. And there he was in his leather jacket, his beret, his Free Huey button, his powder blue shirt, the uniform of the Black Panther Party. And I realized as I was looking at him that he was 17 and I was 17. Wow. And I said, I that could be me lying in that coffin.
Wow. Well,
and so it was at that moment that I knew I was ready to die for the people. Right. It was at that precise moment. There was no turning back. There was no hesitation.
Okay.
You know, it was just to die for the people.
Right.
Building a revolutionary movement. That was the point.
Right on. Right on. And I was going to also say that as a co-founder of the Seattle Black Panther Party, how is that different from just regular membership? Obviously, you have a tremendous amount of responsibility.
Well, you know, when Bobby came to Seattle 2 weeks later, he told us to go to Seattle. He'd be there in 2 weeks. And we were in our parents' home, which is being designated as a historical landmark because it was the birthplace not only of the Black Panther Party in Seattle, but the first chapter formed outside of the state of California.
Okay. Wow.
And so when he came and he laid down, you know, the rules of the Black Panther Party, and he told us we needed two things. We needed to read twice a day and go to PE classes twice a week, political education. We need to prepare our minds to be able to articulate revolution. Right. And understand how to build a revolutionary movement. And then he said, you need 2 weapons and 1,000 rounds of ammunition. This was a requirement to become a member of the Black Panther Party, because he said that they're going to come after you anytime you challenge one of the biggest bullies in history. They're coming for you.
Okay.
And so, we had no idea how to build a revolutionary movement. Aaron and Bobby said, "Who's going to run this thing?"
Right.
And all the eyes went to Aaron
Mhm.
because he's mild mannered. Aaron is and he's got this even keel.
Mhm.
I'm ready to punch a motherfucker in the face, but
I get you.
so, so Aaron was appointed captain,
Mhm.
and I was appointed at that point what they called the field lieutenant, deputy field marshal, field lieutenant, which the title eventually became. Yeah, that's what it became, field lieutenant. It was deputy field marshal, but field lieutenant. I was in charge of security and in charge of kind of monitoring the troops.
Okay.
And so what it felt like is that, we're learning while we go.
Yeah.
Bobby would call us down to Central Headquarters every other week. Get down here. We hop in the car and drive straight to Oakland Central Headquarters
Right.
so that we could serve and learn, attend their PE classes. We were learning how to build that. This was the same thing that happened across the country.
Right.
Because Bobby left Seattle and he started building chapters all the way, Kansas City, Chicago, New Jersey, New York, Iowa. He was building chapters all across the country. In fact, that summer, I think there was some 40 chapters. Eventually, there were 60 chapters.
Okay.
And so, we learned the spirit of revolution and revolutionary rhetoric. We learned the 10-10-10 program and how to organize in the community. So it was like, tell you the truth, brother.
Mhm.
It was like it was like managing the crazies
Oh, wow.
because,
Mhm. Yeah.
well,
Yes.
you have to understand that, we had a process, we had an application you had to fill out to get into the party,
Mhm.
but we had no means of checking backgrounds.
Right. Right. Gotcha.
There was no
Gotcha.
cell phones, there
Mhm.
was no social media, there was no internet.
Mhm.
None of that would come for 20 years,
Wow.
at least for 20 years.
Okay.
And so word of mouth,
Mhm.
who could vouch for this brother, this sister, that kind of thing.
Right.
You know them from the community, you know them from the hood, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so we ended up getting a whole lot of rally Panthers into the party all across the country. I
Okay.
was just in Chicago when I was just there in a week, 2 weeks ago. I
Mhm.
was, hanging out with Billy Che Brooks
Mhm.
and um, Oppress.
Mhm.
These are two brothers that were in the party. I knew Oppress. Oppress and I were on the honor guard. We were pallbearers for Sam Napier's funeral together.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And so these are comrades that I've known since way back in, in the early days of the party. These are diehard members of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party.
Okay.
And they said the same thing happened in Chicago. They said when,
Yeah.
Chairman Fred said everybody's expelled
Mhm. Right. Right.
because Huey had ordered a purge from prison
Mhm.
in January or February of 1969, and because so many, it was trying to hoard, like it's trying to, like corral, wild steer,
Mhm.
because people got in the party to, to rob, like rob the man, they're holding up banks in broad daylight, all that kind of, it was crazy.
Right.
And um so, while we're trying to figure out, as we're trying to organize,
Right.
this stuff is going on, and we're trying to, manage, all of that. So
Yeah.
it was a little bit of chaos, until we, were able to, because we had a police alert patrol.
Mhm.
We went out on police alert patrol. I remember I'm sitting in the car with six Panthers, man, five. I'm the fifth, five other Panthers, and uh, shoulder to shoulder, deep with shotguns and law books. Cop car pulls up to the light, and the cop car was already at the light, and we had been following him, and we pulled up alongside of him, and we're sitting there at the light, and the light's about to turn green, but the brother driving the car, I knew he was going to do it.
Right.
I said, don't do that. And he jammed on the gas just before the light turned green, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
like daring the cops to chase us.
Oh, my
But
goodness.
they turned up the other way.
Okay.
I mean, you look on the car, you got 5 black men with shotguns.
Oh
You know.
yeah. That's easy to sport out. But I do want to let you know what we got about 3 minutes only because I need to do a part 2 with you.
Okay, good.
Because the limited time.
The story has just begun.
It's just begun. But what I want to do is, as I conclude, I want to get make sure people know where to get your book and also how to reach out to you for speaking engagements.
Yeah. Okay. Well, speaking engagements, they can contact me directly at my email, which is edixon, EDIXON, at executivediversity.com.
Okay.
And so that's a direct route to reach out to me for speaking engagements. And until I get on a couple of these speakers bureaus that I'm applying to. So when I get on these speakers bureaus, things are probably going to change a little bit.
Okay.
But for now, that's the best way. And then for the book, I want you to reach directly out to my publisher.
Mhm.
Amazon is a total ripoff if you've ever. All right, so here's how they purchase the book. It's HTTPS //
Okay.
twosisterswriting.com. That's TWOSISTERSWRITING.com /book/die DIE hyphen standing hyphen by hyphen Elmer hyphen Dixon /. That'll take them directly to ordering my book.
Okay. Thank you. And again, brother, I really appreciate it. I want to make sure the next time I get you on my long platform, but unfortunately, we definitely got to cut it short. But I want to do a part 2 with you very soon when it's when you're available.
Yeah. Well, this time of day on Saturdays, it's always a good time.
Okay. All right. Right on. Well, brother, again, thank you so much, and I'll be getting back with you real soon.
All power to the people.
All power to the people. Yes, sir.